Today we're going to look at the skeletal system. So if you would, in your lab pack, find your overview of the skeletal system. It's from 126 to 156 in the lab manual. And I printed mine out, and you don't have to print yours out. You can just kind of work along. But we're going to start with thinking of what the skeletal system functions are, as we always do when we think of the systems. So when you think of the skeletal system, what do you think of? What kinds of functions would you think of? I think most people probably would say framework. It's really a framework for the rest of the body, the muscles, the organs, the skin. And in being that framework, it's going to help with things like movement. It's going to help with protection. The ribs would be a good example of how protecting those underlying organs would be a function. But it's also going to be important in some other important functions to the body. So on page 129, they show you a few of those functions. Along with framework, support, protection, it's also going to be important for blood cell formation. So inside the bones, if we were able to look inside them, we'd find different types of cavities, some called red bone marrow, and that would be important for hematopoiesis or blood cell formation. And then we also have yellow bone marrow, and yellow bone marrow is used for storage of things like fats. So we'll talk later about the parts of the bone, and we'll talk about where those bone marrows would be located. But hematopoiesis is one of the words that they have in bold that you should be familiar with, blood cell formation. And that's important with things like cancer. When we're treating cancers, we sometimes do a bone marrow transplant, and that's related to that blood cell formation. The other important function will be storage of minerals. Calcium and phosphate and some other minerals are stored in the bone tissue. And an important fact about the bone, it's not like it's generated and then it never changes. We tend to think of it as being static, but your bone is constantly being remodeled, constantly being built up, constantly being broken down so that it's the strongest that it can be. And that's why it's so important that we have minerals like calcium throughout our lifetime, not just you drink milk when you're a kid and then forget about calcium. So those are some important functions of the skeletal system, and a little bit of background for what we'll do next. It's called the chemical components of bone. And here's where you really get to use your dissecting kit. And I was considering the best way to get you to participate in this. And so what I came up with, I can't force you to do it, but I'm going to have this as an opportunity for bonus points. I'm going to ask you to try exercise 1. It involves using chicken bones. You could use other types of bones, but chicken bones are sort of the most easily accessible. And it encourages you to try some experimentation. So it encourages you to bake them so you can get the meat off of the bone, and then take 2 different bones and immerse one in lemon juice, and then the other one bake in the oven for I think 45 minutes or something like that. So what I'm going to suggest is that you try it and you actually perform the experiment. It's asking you to consider the internal structures of the bone and the effects of these different treatments. And then if you take a picture of yourself with those bones and post it in Blackboard to the discussion board that I'll make. I haven't made it yet, but I'll post that discussion, and if you post a picture of yourself, then I'll give you a bonus point, because I'm curious to see how well this works for you and how you're able to learn from that experiment. The main points in that exercise 1, though, are that you've got both organic and inorganic materials. You've got living cells and you've got non-living components, because this is connective tissue. When we think about the skeleton, we're thinking of 2 types of connective tissue. The bone itself, we have some compact bone and spongy bone, and then also cartilage, and both of those are connective tissues. Now, I don't expect you without a microscope to see the different cells, but if you recall back when we did the tissue types and the cells that form them, the bone has cells called osteocytes, and the cartilage has cells called chondrocytes. And they're located in little chambers called lacunae. And I don't think that you'll be able to see those individual chambers, but you may see some of the organization of those tissues as you observe those bones. So I would encourage you to try that. It does take some time, so I'll leave that open for the rest of the course, and you have a couple of weeks to actually perform that. So it gives you the list of ingredients and how to perform it, and then you get to break them up and see what's inside those bones. So I'll encourage you to try that.